What was your experience like with your insurance agent?
So when I was getting my insurance, I was in a rush because I needed to have insurance in order to get my mortgage, and I needed to close really quickly. So I just applied for, or I went in with my car insurance, the same company, and then just was like, give me a quote right now.
Right.
And then they gave me a quote, and I kind of was like, all right, great. And that was it. So I didn't really look at anything.
So what happens is most people, when they're purchasing property insurance, it's always in a time crunch, whether it be from my prior policy got canceled or I need to close on a piece of real estate that I'm buying, or a home or a condominium. And so most people call an insurance agent that they have a little bit of a relationship with, or that someone recommends, and they say, hey, I need insurance. But very rarely does your insurance agent say, okay, what type of insurance do you want? What are the bells and the whistles? What type of coverage do you want? They just assume that they know what you want. And so what they do is they go and they put insurance policy together. And that's what happened for you, right? Okay. And then you didn't even know what questions to ask, such as like, do I have coverage for this? Do I have coverage for that? Most insurance policies, they limit coverage. The really big issue in today's world, and you own a condominium, and there's units above yours, correct?
No, I'm the top unit.
Okay, top unit. But let's say there's someone below you and that they have insurance. If water comes down from your bathtub from an overflow into the unit below, what most people don't realize is that there's only $10,000 worth of water coverage. So that's not nearly a sufficient amount of insurance coverage if you have a water loss. Because if you had a water loss event and water's coming from the ceiling down into someone's unit, what will happen is you have to get access to the walls, to get access under cabinets, to dry all of that out, and that costs thousands and thousands of dollars. So most people, if they really knew or had a water claim before, they would have asked their agent, what's my water coverage? And most insurance companies right now in the state of Florida only provide $10,000 worth of water coverage, which isn't a significant amount of water coverage at all, especially in a condominium setting. So whenever you're dealing with your agent, ask questions, but you don't know what questions to ask. Would that be, you didn't know what questions to ask your agent?
I didn't know what questions to ask, and I also wasn't sure like what amount of coverage I would need in any category.
Because you didn't know what it would take to rebuild certain things in the event of a loss. So so you left up to your insurance agent the coverage that you thought you needed. Fair statement?
Yeah.
And that insurance agent isn't going to be there when you have a claim. That's the claims department. The underwriting and insurance agent department should never be talking with the claims department. And the reason for that is because profits from every insurance company are derived from the underwriting stage, the stage you just went through. But all too often, insurance companies don't make payment for the full amount of the claim that they're supposed to, so they generate profits in two places. They generate them on the claim side and the underwriting side when they're only supposed to generate them on the underwriting side. So what happens is that if you aren't properly insured, you may have a claim, but you will never get fully indemnified. A good rule of thumb when you're thinking about purchasing insurance is, number one, to have a meaningful conversation with your insurance agent and ask them to educate you and ask you questions. In your instance, did the insurance agent give you a filled out application for insurance?
We did it entirely through email.
Right. And your insurance agent filled out an application for you and said, here, sign these things.
Yeah.
And you didn't know what you were signing, correct?
Correct.
And they're asking you that you agree to certain things, that you limit coverage for what's called ordinance and law. Did your insurance agent ever talk to you about what ordinance and law is?
No.
But they had you sign an application that limited you to your coverage under ordinance and law. Did they ever talk to you about mold coverage?
No.
Did they ever tell you that mold coverage is limited to $10,000 worth of coverage?
No.
So if you had a water claim, and here's why these things are important. Your agent never talked to you about water limit coverage or mold coverage. If you took a 10-day trip and you left the country and you went to Europe on a 10-day trip, and you left your unit and no one was in it, and your air conditioning unit stopped working the next day, and then water started coming out of your overflow valve of your AC. By the time you got back with no AC running in your condominium, there would be a significant amount of water damage and mold damage. And your insurance policy would limit that coverage probably to $20,000. And that wouldn't be a significant amount of money, because water damages and mold damages are very intrusive and they happen very quickly. And you can't always see where there's damage to occur. So if you left town for 10 days and that occurred at your unit, you probably wouldn't have sufficient amount of insurance coverage to make the repairs. And your agent never even asked you those questions.
No.
Did your agent ever ask you how much is your personal property worth, such as your clothes or your TVs or your electronic equipment?
No.
So your insurance agent sold you a policy that had a certain amount of coverage, and that they never asked you, what do you think your stuff is worth? And that's very important because you're paying for coverage under your insurance policy. Most insurance policies have what we call special limits, personal property limits, such as money. There's only certain amounts of money that you can have in your insured property. A lot of policies only have $200 to $1,000 worth of coverage. So if you're someone that keeps a lot of cash on hand and that cash goes up in a fire, you will not get paid that back by your insurance company. A lot of people in today's world are electronic people. They like TVs, computers, sound systems, all sorts of type of electronic equipment. But under a lot of policies of insurance, those electronics are only limited to $1,000 worth of coverage. And no one ever tells you that. So if you have 3 TVs in your house, you may not have enough insurance coverage to replace those TVs if they get damaged during the loss. Jewelry, watches, or coats, furs, leathers, things of that nature, there's limits under your policy of insurance. Your agent effectively sold you a policy at a time when they knew they could take advantage of you and you didn't know what type of coverage you had. So if your unit went up in a fire today, would you have any idea of how much things are worth and how much to ask the insurance company to reimburse you?
No.
Right. And those are things that should have all occurred during the underwriting process. Your insurance agent should sit down with you and say, I have a few questions for you. What do you think your personal property is worth? How is your unit and where is it in the complex? Your unit's on the top floor, so you probably won't have to worry about units above you and water flowing down and causing damages, which is good. But if your unit's on the first floor, that's a different story. Other things, when you are signing your insurance application, you're giving up certain rights under your insurance policy that your agent probably never advised you about. Under policies of insurance today, there are preferred contractor endorsements that say, if you agree to use our person to fix your home, then we will give you a discount. And that discount can be $50. So what they're doing is they're selling you a product and they're selling you a service, and they can't even tell you and give you a copy of the contract of insurance to inform you, to let you know what you're buying. You have to take your belief that they have your best interest in mind, and they don't. So you've bought a product that you don't know what it is, you don't know how it operates, but if you have a claim, you're going to think, I bought insurance, I have coverage for that. And unless you read through your insurance policy when you received it, you will never know what type of insurance coverage you have until you have a claim. And then it's too late, because you'll say, well, I had a fire at my house and I kept $2,000 of cash, and now I'm not going to get reimbursed for that because I didn't know, because no one ever told me. But the insurance company wants to say, well, it's in the policy of insurance. And you go, that's a 50, 60-page document. How am I supposed to understand that? And you won't.
I mean, when I was trying to buy my insurance, I was trying to figure out first what was covered under my HOA's insurance. And trying to read that document, I had no idea what was covered and what wasn't. And
under Florida law, what happens is very difficult to comprehend for just the average person on the street, is that your condominium has an insurance product that covers the condominium common elements. And the common elements can include the walkways, the roof, the exterior walls, and include everything up until the sheetrock in your unit. but then you will buy a policy that's responsible for everything on the interior of your unit, such as your cabinets, your flooring material, your final coat of paint, your doors, things of that nature. And so when someone has a claim, they think, oh, my insurance company will cover it. And your insurance company will say, no, that's your condominium association's responsibility. And so then you call your condominium association and they're like, well, that's not significant enough for us to file a claim. And then you're in a real catch-22 because your insurance company is only paying so much for the repairs to be damaged. And so you're not only fighting your insurance company, you're fighting your condominium association at the same time. And with the rate of building in the state of Florida, I mean, condominiums and townhouses are going to be is going to have more insurance is going to be on those products than homes potentially in time. And so if you don't know what's being covered, you don't even know where to begin when there's a claim. So that's why, honestly, having people advise you on the outside of the situation is the best thing to do. But you didn't have time to do that because you were in a time crunch, like most people are in today's world with what's occurring in the insurance industry. So the insurance agent knows that, and they don't even have a 10-minute phone call with you to tell you what you're buying. But your agent is getting paid off of the amount of money that you pay for that insurance product. Mm-hmm. So their interest is get that product in place regardless of what it is so that they can get paid. A good way to approach the situation in the future is to have a relationship with your agent on a yearly basis, have a set 10-minute phone call with them and say, hey, let's go through my coverages and make sure they're appropriate. Has there been any change in circumstances? A lot of people started working from home in 2019 after COVID. And a lot of people brought a lot of electronic equipment into their homes to do their work, most of which is not covered under their insurance policies. But insurance agents don't tell people that. And then when you have a claim, you're like, well, I had all this equipment I use for work and it's not covered under your insurance policy. Some people are doing work from home, where people come to their house as part of the process. If your insurance agent doesn't know that, then there's not going to be certain coverages under your insurance policy because you're running a business out of your home. There's all sorts of limits of coverage that are being placed into policies nowadays that no one ever knows about until they have a claim. And then it's too late. So if there's any advice I could give you is sit down on a yearly basis, go through your insurance coverage with your insurance agent, make sure that you are reviewing it as part of the process. And if your insurance agent's not willing to do that, then get a new agent because they're supposed to be working for you. In reality, they're not doing much for you. And there are good agents out there. They're just few and far between nowadays. But let's see what else.
I have a question for
you.
When I was going through the process, I can't remember exactly what it was. You'll probably be able to tell me. But it was wind mitigation assessment.
So what happens when you purchase real estate? The insurance part of the insurance underwriting process is they want either a 4-point inspection or a hurricane mitigation. Let's see. When people are purchasing real estate, they want inspection reports done. Some of those are mitigation inspection reports or 4-point inspection reports. And that's where the insurance company is asking, what is the roof makeup? Is there hurricane straps there? What type of piping is in the home, whether it's cast iron pipe or updated piping. And the insurance industry uses some of those reports to make a determination on how much coverage they're going to give you or whether they're going to give you coverage at all or not. So when you are buying your insurance, they're asking you for those reports so that they can make a determination, is the risk acceptable to me? Another thing is that when you purchase a policy of insurance, the insurance company should properly underwrite it, meaning someone should come out and they should make an inspection of your home or your property and say, yes, it's in good condition. What happens all too often is that people file a claim and the insurance company will come out and say, oh no, that's just traditional wear and tear on a home. That's not covered under your insurance policy. And you say, but I just purchased this policy a year ago. No one ever told me when I was buying the policy that I had wear and tear items that I needed to fix at the home. But when you have a claim, that's what they lead with. It's wear and tear or failure to maintain the home. So they don't tell you that when they accept your premiums, but they tell you that after you have a claim. Why? Because it leads to them not having to pay as much money for your claim or not pay your claim at all. With your insurance policies, you should always sit down every year and go through them and make sure that you have the company you want and you have the coverages that you need to. For example, I can see your dwelling limit coverage and you have a condominium. So when you're looking at that, you have to ask yourself, if I have to redo the kitchen, because I'm going to be responsible for my cabinets, and I have to replace all of the flooring material, and then I have to replace the baseboard and I paint it, can I do all of that for the amount of money that the insurance company has provided coverage for? And most people find out at the end of the day, based upon the limitations of their policy, that they're not insured to enough value. And when that happens is when people file claims, and that's when they find out. No one knows what coverage you have on a homeowner setting and whether it's sufficient until after you file a claim, unless you've had a claim before. So what happens is people learn one time, but most people only have one claim in their lifetime. And some people have multiple claims. We live in a state where there's hurricanes and there's tornadoes and there's storms every week. And those are severe events that can cause damages. So, does your insurance agent ever talk to you about additional living expenses or what happens if you can't live in your unit during the claims process? So, another thing that's very important is if you can't live in your property, does your insurance policy provide coverage for what we call additional living expenses? Meaning, how much coverage does it provide for you to go live somewhere else? So if you have a water loss in your property and you need to relocate while they do the repairs, how much money do you have to go live somewhere else? Such as I'm looking at your loss of use coverage, and if could you get an apartment for 3 months for that amount of money that's in your coverage for a short term? Probably not. And so then you're left in a situation with, well, where do I go live while they're fixing the unit? They go through all these questions. See, they put all of this information in and you don't even know about it. Let's say like eligibility questions. So they gave you all of this previously filled out and you're probably like, yep, and signed it. So some of them, yeah. Are there any rumors or borders on the residence premises? No. Yours needs to
say yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. Because what will happen is, let's say your roomie gets like injured or hurt or something like that. She's gonna say, well, you left the kitchen knife out or something. Who knows? Whatever. Okay. And so then they're gonna say, hey, I want your insurance information, and then your agent probably filled out the question, and then you'll go and your agent will say, well, you never told me there was rumors or borders, and your application actually says no, there's not. And so then when your roommate files a claim against yours, you won't have coverage for that. And even if it was strictly an accident that caused her damage, then they will look to you, for those damages. And you're going to say, but I bought insurance. And the agent's going to say, well, look at the application. You signed it where it said no. And you're going to say, I didn't know what I was signing because I just had to get it done so quick. Mm-hmm. So your agent is taking money and they're not doing a job for you. And it's putting you at risk because you've spent all this time and money for your home that is like most people's largest asset, and it's at risk, all because because your agent didn't take the time to do things. And normally it's too late when you figure all that out. It's way too late. Did they ask you if you had any pets or dogs or anything?
I don't think so.
Yeah. I mean, certain types of dogs are excluded from coverage. So certain policies say if you have a pit bull or a Rottweiler, then we are excluding any animal bites.
Mm.
We all know a Chihuahua bites more than it's true. I mean, but it's true. Yeah. I mean, and here's a perfect example. I mean, this is what it is. It's called a notice of limited water damage. I understand that for an additional premium, the policy provides coverage for water damage, 5% of coverage A, or $10,000, whichever is greater. That's this policy, but almost every policy, condominium policy, has that in them nowadays. So $10,000 worth of water coverage is nothing. So you can imagine if you had a water loss under your kitchen sink and you had to replace all of your cabinets, could you replace all of your kitchen cabinets and your countertop and like fix the floor below it for $10,000? No, most people couldn't. But most people don't know. They go, I had insurance for that. And then when they come to me, I go, yeah, but you had limited coverage. But your insurance agent, they'll never tell you those things, but they'll say, oh, look, here, you signed here. Here are your initials. So you knew. And then they'll say, and we sent you the policy. So you should have known when we sent you the policy. Mm-hmm. So you've taken something that's your largest purchase in your entire life, most likely, and the largest asset that most people have. And then they don't properly insure it because insurance agents are just trying to get you to sign off on the dotted line and make the payment. And that's how they make money. The insurance agents aren't there to help you with the claims process either. Something else they don't tell you. If you have a claim, an insurance agent will send an email or make a phone call, and that's it. That's all they will help you, because their job is to sell insurance, not to help you with the claims process. So it's very intimidating. It's a very burdensome process that most property owners don't really have the ability to deal with. And financially, it's very hard to pay someone to advise you on those things because it costs money to do that. That's what your agent's supposed to be doing. Commercial properties, they have people that all of their responsibility is to educate people and consult on what type of coverages for large buildings or condominium complexes or large commercial buildings. But for the traditional homeowners, they don't take the time to explain all of these items to you. And when they don't do that, you don't know until it's too late. So, and there's multiple products that they could buy. I mean, there's HO1s, HO2s, HO3s that are for homes. There are HO4s that are for rental units. If you just rent, there's a policy available for just renters. There's HO5 and HO6s and HO7s that are for higher value houses, condominium units, mobile homes. There's HO8s, which are like very specialized policies. But in the state of Florida, agents don't take the time to explain to you what you need to know.
So let's say that I was a homeowner and I wasn't sure which, in my instance, I did know which one I wanted because my mortgage told me you need to go out and get an HO6. Right. So I called my agent and I was like, I don't know what an HO6 is, but I've been told I need one. But if I was a homeowner and my mortgage didn't tell me which one to get, how would I even know which one I needed?
You're relying upon your insurance agent. So what happens is when you call your insurance agent, you say, I have a home or I have a townhouse or I have a condominium I want to insure. There are specific type of products that are available in the marketplace. But with each and every insurance company, you can change certain types of coverage. So if it's an older home, let's say it's in a historic district, you want to purchase more ordinance and law coverage because your home is going to have to be built a certain way that's going to cost more money if there is a loss. The same is for older buildings. If you have to replace all of the windows and doors, if it's a very old unit, you want to make sure that you have those coverages to provide protection. But yours is a typical situation where you don't know what to buy and you depend upon the agent to know, and yet the agent didn't ask you really one question about your unit. They know how old it is and they know because that information is public record, but they don't know the things personally about you, such as whether you're a clothes person and you like a bunch of different clothes or handbags. They didn't ask you whether you're an electronics person and you have a lot of electronics. They didn't ask you whether you're, a jewelry person and you have, or firearms. A lot of, most policies and insurance limit firearm coverage to $1,000 or $2,000, and some people like to purchase expensive guns. But at the end of the day, you relied upon the agent to tell you what you needed, and the insurance agent told you what they thought you needed in their opinion, but they never really talked to you.
I mean, I felt like the entire discussion was basically a monthly the payment negotiation.
Right.
And they were like, well, I'll put this down a little bit so that your monthly payment is this.
Well, and most people purchase insurance not from the aspect of what is the protection I'm getting. They purchase it from what is the price I'm paying.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is you pay this annual premium every year, and then you don't know until you have a claim how good your coverage is or not. So if you have a claim and that you don't get paid for a lot of your damage, most people would think about it and said, I would have paid a couple dollars more if I knew this was going to happen. But insurance is not a product that people pay as much attention to as they should until they try to use it. Mm-hmm. And then when they try to use it, they find out, oh wow, this is not what I thought I was getting. Example is, if you go buy a car and someone took a Toyota and they slapped a Lexus symbol on it, they're kind of both made on the same platform, but you thought you were buying a Lexus when in reality you're buying a Toyota Camry, let's say. It's a bad example, but I think if you don't know what you're getting until it's too late, and they don't even tell you, they don't even give you a copy of what you're buying. I mean, what other industry is there that you go to buy something and you don't get you don't get the goods, or you don't get advised what you're getting, and then you're relying totally upon your insurance agent. So go back to your insurance agent now that you've purchased it and say, hey, I have some questions for you. And what you'll find is they're like, oh, you're fine, you're covered, don't worry about it. And then that person is being paid on a monthly basis, part of your insurance premium. So if they're not giving you the coverage, you can always switch your insurance agent.
So I have medical payments coverage. How does that go with my medical insurance? Is that like double up?
Medical payments under your property insurance policy is not the same as payments under a health insurance policy. Medical payments coverage is something that if someone gets hurt on your property and they want to assert a claim against you, then there will be certain levels of insurance that pay for the medical care and coverage for other people for the injuries they sustained on your insured property.
I see. Okay. And then, I mean, I don't know what you mentioned it a couple of times. Building ordinance
and law. So when you have a claim and you have to rebuild your insured property, there are certain ordinances and laws issued by the state of Florida, whether it be by the building department or the building codes, that require you to improve your structure to comply with ordinances and laws. Most policies of insurance provide 25% of your coverage, dwelling coverage, for protection, but sometimes a building may require more coverage than others. So older homes should probably have more ordinance and law coverage rather than newer homes that don't need as much money for ordinance and law coverage just due to the date that the property was built. So, but the ordinance and law, building ordinances and laws are changing all of the time. And so if you live in an older structure, your insurance agent should be advising you need to buy more ordinance and law coverage, because if you have a loss, you might not have enough insurance proceeds to rebuild pursuant to the local ordinances and laws that are in place.